The headquarters of SkyTech Corp, a gleaming glass fortress in the heart of New Avalon, was a battlefield of chaos. Giant screens lining the command center blazed with crimson alerts. Critical security failure. System breach detected. Code scrolled. Frantically across monitors, error logs piling up like digital debris. 30 engineers, the best in the industry, scrambled between workstations, their faces pale with panic. Managers barked orders that dissolved into the cacophony of ringing phones and clattering keyboards. The air was thick with tension, the kind that could choke ambition and crush careers in seconds. At the center of the storm stood Ethan Sy, the 35-year-old CEO of SkyTech, the nation's leading tech conglomerate. His tailored suit was immaculate, but his dark eyes burned with an intensity that silenced the room when he spoke. Checking his sleek platinum watch, he issued a chilling ultimatum. 30 seconds. Fix this or you're all out of a job. His voice was low, sharp, like a blade slicing through the noise. The engineers froze, then dove back into their screens with renewed desperation. "We're trying, sir," stammered a senior engineer, sweat beading on his forehead. "The ransomware has locked us out. It's rejecting all commands." Ethan didn't blink. He crossed his arms, his gaze sweeping the room like a predator waiting for prey to falter. Failure wasn't an option. Not for him, not for SkyTech. Then, the emergency doors swung open with a thud. All eyes turned as a young woman burst in, her delivery backpack bouncing against her sweat-soaked t-shirt. Her helmet was still on, visor flipped up, revealing flushed cheeks and determined hazel eyes. Emma Carter, 24, an app-based delivery worker, was clearly in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Delivery," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Unsweetened iced tea and whole grain tofu sandwich, order number 492. A manager snapped. "Miss, this is a restricted area. Get out." Emma blinked, unfazed, glancing at her phone. "Isn't this the 32nd floor? The app says SkyTech Corp, order for Ethan Sy." She held up the delivery bag, oblivious to the stunned silence that followed. Every head swiveled to Ethan, who turned slowly to face her. "You know who I am?" he asked, his tone flat but curious. Emma shrugged, tapping her phone screen. "Your name's right here. Order placed at 11:42 a.m. You're 1 minute late, by the way." A ripple of gasps spread through the room. No one spoke to Ethan Sy. Like that, not employees, not rivals, not even the board of directors. Ethan raised an eyebrow, unamused. "Traffic?" "Yeah, and a busted elevator," Emma replied, catching her breath. "Here's your food." She thrust the bag toward him, but her eyes darted to the massive screen behind him, where lines of corrupted code flashed ominously. She froze, her brow furrowing. "Wait, is that your system? You're trying to restart it with the core cache. Still active?" A senior engineer scoffed, pushing up his glasses. "Great. Now the delivery girl's giving us tech advice." Emma ignored him, pointing at the screen. "That line of code, it's triggering a defense protocol. It'll lock everything down if you don't bypass the cache first." The room fell silent. Ethan stepped closer, his gaze narrowing. "You understand this?" "I studied computer science for 3 years before I dropped out," Emma said, her tone matter-of-fact. "Can I try something?" Ethan glanced at his engineers, their eyes averted in embarrassment. "Go ahead," he said, gesturing to the main terminal. The team parted like a sea as Emma approached, her delivery bag still slung over her shoulder. She hesitated, then tapped the touchscreen with surprising confidence, pulling up a hidden command line. Her fingers flew across the interface, entering a string of commands to isolate the cache and reroute the system through a backup server. She unplugged the cable, then hit enter. 3 seconds later, the alarm stopped. The screens flickered, then glowed green. System stable. Access restored. Silence. The engineers stared, dumbfounded. Emma stepped back, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Did it work?" she asked, glancing around at the sea of stunned faces. Ethan's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to her. "Your name?" "Emma Carter," she replied, adjusting her helmet. "Can I go now? I've got more deliveries." He held up a hand. "Wait." But Emma was already halfway to the door, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "I'm late for my next drop," she called over her shoulder. Vanishing through the emergency exit, Ethan watched her go, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Behind him, the command center buzzed back to life, but his mind was elsewhere. "Daniel," he said, turning to his assistant, Daniel Lynn, a sharp-eyed man in his 30s who'd been with him for a decade. "Find out everything about her." "Already on it, sir," Daniel replied, pulling out his tablet. Outside, Emma hopped onto her battered motorcycle, weaving through New Avalon's rain-slicked streets. Her phone pinged with notifications, late delivery warnings from the app, but she ignored them, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. She had no idea that her moment in SkyTech's command center had been captured by over 30 security cameras. By the time she reached her next stop, a grainy video of the delivery girl who saved SkyTech was trending on Twitter with #DeliveryHero. Amassing millions of views. Back at SkyTech, Ethan sat in his corner office, a wall of glass overlooking the city's glittering skyline. His laptop screen displayed the security footage, zoomed in on Emma's face as she typed those fateful commands. "Emma Carter," he murmured, intrigued. Daniel entered, holding a tablet. "Preliminary report, sir. Emma Carter, 24, former. Computer science major at Avalon University, full scholarship, dropped out in her junior year. Her father, James Carter, was a chef at Silver Fork, accused of poisoning 15 customers 3 years ago. He died in prison. Suicide." Ethan's eyes darkened. "And her current situation?" "Lives in a low-income apartment in East Side with her mother, Sarah Carter, who has a degenerative illness, and her 12-year-old brother, Noah. She works 14-hour shifts as a delivery rider to cover rent and medical bills. No criminal record. But she's been flagged by some local news outlets as the poisoner's daughter." Ethan leaned back, his fingers drumming on the desk. "Why would someone with that kind of talent be delivering sandwiches?" "Maybe she's running from something," Daniel suggested. "Or someone." "Keep digging," Ethan ordered, his gaze returning to the footage. "I want to know everything." Across town, Emma pushed open the creaky door of her family's cramped apartment. The smell of damp plaster and cheap takeout lingered in the air. "Mom, I'm home," she called, setting a plastic bag of groceries, rice, eggs, and discount vegetables on the counter. Sarah Carter, frail and pale in her wheelchair, offered a tired smile. "Rough day, sweetie?" "Same old," Emma said, forcing a grin. "Had to dodge traffic and a broken elevator, but I made it." She glanced at the peeling wallpaper, where a faded photo of her father, James Carter, hung. He was smiling beside a plated dish, his last culinary award before everything fell apart. Emma's chest tightened, but she pushed the feeling down, heading to the tiny kitchen to start dinner. Outside, 2 men sat in a black sedan across the street, watching her apartment. "That's her?" one asked, adjusting his cap. "Yeah," the other replied, checking a photo on his phone. "Ethan Sy wants us to keep an eye on her. Says she's special." "What's his deal with her?" "No idea. But when Mr. Sy wants something, we deliver." The next morning, Emma stopped at a newsstand on her delivery route, her heart sinking as she saw the headline on Tech Times. "Delivery girl fixes SkyTech crisis in seconds. Who is Emma Carter?" Her face was plastered on the cover, A still from the security footage. No, 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 she muttered, her pulse racing. This is gonna be trouble. As she turned the corner, a sleek black limousine pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Ethan Tsai's intense gaze. Emma, he said, his voice calm but commanding. We need to talk. Emma froze, clutching her backpack. About what? I just delivered your food. Ethan's lips curved into a half smile. You did more than that. Get in. I need your help. She took a step back, nearly tripping on the cracked sidewalk. My help? That was a fluke. I'm no tech genius. Fluke or not, you solved a ransomware attack in seconds, Ethan said, his eyes locking onto hers. That's not luck. That's skill. He handed her a black card with gold lettering. Meet me at this address. 7 p.m., don't be late. The limousine pulled away, leaving Emma staring at the card, her heart pounding. Across the street, a camera shutter clicked discreetly, capturing the moment. The morning sun barely pierced the smog over New Avalon's east side, where Emma Carter's world was unraveling. Her phone buzzed relentlessly on the chipped kitchen counter, each notification a fresh wound. The viral video of her fixing SkyTech's system had exploded, with hashtag delivery hero trending at over 5 million tweets. But fame came with a price. Her delivery app supervisor, a gruff man named Tony, had called at dawn. You're done, Emma, he'd barked, sneaking into a high-security firm and making headlines? That's bad for business. Return the uniform tomorrow. Emma stared at the phone, her hands trembling. Losing the job meant no rent money, no medicine for her mother, Sarah Carter, whose degenerative illness drained their savings like a slow leak. She glanced at her 12-year-old brother, Noah, eating cereal at their wobbly table. You okay, Ham? He asked, his wide eyes catching her distress. Yeah, just figuring things out, she lied, forcing a smile. Across the room, Sarah slept fitfully in her wheelchair, a faded quilt draped over her frail frame. The apartment's peeling walls seemed to close in, the weight of unpaid bills and whispered rumors about their father, James Carter, suffocating her. 3 years ago, James, a celebrated chef at Silver Fork, was accused of poisoning 15 customers. His suicide in prison shattered their family, branding Emma as the poisoner's daughter. She dropped out of Avalon University's computer science program to care for Sarah and Noah. Trading dreams for survival. Her phone pinged again. A news alert from Tech Times. Delivery girls stunt at SkyTech. Genius or publicity ploy? The article featured her photo, alongside a grainy image of James in handcuffs. Emma's stomach churned. She grabbed her backpack, needing air, but paused at the sight of a black card with gold lettering on the counter. Ethan Tsai's card. Ocean Breeze Restaurant, 7 p.m. The memory of his intense gaze sent a shiver through her. Could he really want her help, or was this another trap? Outside, Emma hopped on her motorcycle, weaving through traffic to her next stop, a pharmacy, for Sarah's meds. As she paid with crumpled bills, a woman at the counter sneered. Aren't you that poisoner's kid from the news? Emma clenched her jaw, counting to 3 in her head, a trick James taught her to stay calm. My father was innocent, she said evenly, grabbing the medicine and leaving before the woman could reply. By late afternoon, Emma's resolve was fraying. She parked her bike near a downtown newsstand where Tech Times screamed her name. Passers-by whispered, some snapping photos. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stay out of trouble, Carter. You know what happens to people who dig too deep. Her pulse quickened. Was this about SkyTech or something darker tied to her father's case? At 6:45 p.m., Emma stood outside Ocean Breeze, a 5-star restaurant perched on New Avalon's waterfront. Its glass facade glowed under neon lights, a world apart from her East Side reality. She'd swapped her delivery uniform for a borrowed blouse and less faded jeans, but still felt like an imposter. The black card burned in her pocket. What am I doing here? She muttered, smoothing her hair. Inside, the restaurant buzzed with wealth politicians in tailored suits, celebrities, dripping in diamonds. A hostess led Emma to a private table on the mezzanine, overlooking the city's glittering skyline. Ethan Sy was already there, his dark suit accentuating his sharp features. He stood as she approached, his gaze unreadable but piercing. "You're late," he said, checking his platinum watch. "By 2 minutes," Emma shot back, sliding into the seat. "I came by bike." "Not everyone has a limo." Ethan's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Fair point. Thank you for coming." "Why, Em?" "I hear?" Emma asked, her voice blunt. "If this is about yesterday, it was a fluke. I'm not some tech prodigy." Ethan leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "You bypassed a ransomware attack in seconds, something my top engineers couldn't do in hours. That's not a fluke. That's talent." He slid a folder across the table. "I want you to join SkyTech's cybersecurity team." Emma stared at the folder, her heart racing. The offer was tempting: steady pay, benefits, a chance to escape the grind. But doubt gnawed at her. "You don't know me. Why take the risk?" "I know enough," Ethan said. "Dropped out of Avalon University, full scholarship, 4.0 GPA until your father's arrest." "You're not just a delivery girl, Emma." Her breath caught. "You looked into me?" "It's my job to know who I'm dealing with," he replied, unfazed. "Your father, James Carter, chef at Silver Fork, accused of poisoning customers. Died in prison. That's why you left school, isn't it?" Emma's fingers tightened around her water glass. "Don't talk about him like you knew him. He was innocent, and no one believed us." Her voice cracked, betraying the pain she'd buried for years. Ethan studied her, his expression softening slightly. "What do you say happened?" "He was framed," Emma said fiercely. "He loved cooking more than anything. He'd never hurt anyone." She pushed the folder back. "Thanks for the offer, but I can't. People like you don't hire people like me without an agenda." Before Ethan could respond, a sharp voice cut through the hum of the restaurant. Well, if it isn't the poisoner's daughter." Emma turned to see Margaret Hayes, a statuesque woman in a crimson dress, her eyes glittering with malice. As the wife of Richard Hayes, owner of Silver Fork, Margaret was New Avalon's queen of high society, and a name Emma had learned to dread. "Mrs. Hayes," Ethan said coolly, rising. "I didn't expect to see you." Margaret ignored him, her gaze fixed on Emma. What's a criminal spawn doing in a place like this? Planning to poison the menu? Her voice carried, drawing curious stares from nearby tables. Emma's face burned, but she stood, meeting Margaret's eyes. "My father was innocent, and you know it. He made Silver Fork what it is, and your husband destroyed him for it." Margaret laughed, sharp and cruel. "Innocent? That's why he killed himself in a cell, I suppose. Guilty men always take the easy way out." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Stay out of our world, girl. You don't belong here." Emma's fists clenched, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, to hurl the truth at Margaret, that James had been planning to open his own restaurant, a dream that threatened Richard's empire. But a waiter intervened, guiding Margaret back to her table, where her daughter, Chloe Hayes, smirked from behind a martini glass. Emma sank into her chair, trembling with rage and humiliation. Ethan watched her, his expression unreadable. "You didn't deserve that," he said quietly. "Save it," Emma snapped, grabbing her backpack. "I'm done here." "Nah, wait," Ethan said, his tone firm but not unkind. "You're wrong about one thing. I don't have an agenda. I see potential, and I don't care about your last name." He slid another card across the table. One more chance. SkyTech's charity gala, tomorrow night. Compete in a cooking challenge against Claire Thompson, 3 Michelin star chef. Win, and you get a job, no strings attached. Plus $50,000. Emma froze, the figure echoing in her mind. That money could clear their debts, buy Sarah's meds, give Noah a shot at a better school. But the risk was steep public exposure, more scrutiny, more chances for the Hayes family to strike. Why cooking? She asked, suspicious. You saw me code, not cook. Ethan's eyes glinted with something like curiosity. Call it a hunch. Your father was a chef. I want to see what you've got. She hesitated, then took the card. If I do this, it's for me, not you. She stood, leaving the folder behind, and walked out. The weight of Margaret's words still clawing at her dot back at SkyTech. Ethan stood in his office, staring at the city below. Daniel entered, holding a tablet. Sir, the board's uneasy about your interest in Emma Carter. Robert Pierce is pushing for a meeting. Says it's a PR disaster waiting to happen. Let him push, Ethan said, his voice cold. What else do we know about her father's case? Daniel swiped the tablet. The toxicology reports from Silver Fork are inconsistent. The poison didn't match the symptoms reported. And the lead detective, Michael Reed, vanished a week after James Carter's death. Bought a house in London, cash. Ethan's jaw tightened. Interesting. Keep digging. And find out who sent Emma that text today. Yes, sir, Daniel said, then hesitated. Why her, if I may ask? She's a liability. Ethan turned, his eyes distant. Because she's not afraid to stand up to a storm. People like that are rare. Across town, Emma sat on her apartment's sagging couch, the black card in her hand. Noah was asleep, clutching a dog-eared math textbook. Sarah's soft breathing filled the silence. Emma's gaze drifted to the photo of James, his warm smile a reminder of better days. What would you do, Dad? She whispered. Her phone buzzed a Twitter notification. A new hashtag was trending. Hashtag POISONERS daughter, started by Chloe Hayes, with thousands of comments calling Emma a fraud, a danger, a nobody. She closed the app, her resolve hardening. The Hayes family had taken everything from her once. They wouldn't do it again. The grand ballroom of the new Avalon Convention Center glittered under golden chandeliers. A sea of wealth and power gathered for SkyTech Corp's annual charity gala. Tables draped in white linen groaned under crystal glassware and floral centerpieces, while string quartets played softly, mingling with the chatter of tech moguls, politicians, and celebrities. For Emma Carter, standing at the edge of the kitchen entrance in a borrowed apron, it was a world she didn't belong in, and everyone knew it. Her heart pounded as she adjusted her ponytail, the black card from Ethan's side burning a metaphorical hole in her pocket. Tonight, she wasn't just fighting for a job or the promised $50,000 prize. She was fighting to prove she was more than the poisoner's daughter. The viral hashtag delivery hero video had made Emma a reluctant celebrity, but the backlash was vicious. The hashtag POISONERS daughter, fueled by Chloe Hayes, had unleashed a torrent of online vitriol, accusing her of everything from fraud to sabotage. Losing her delivery job had left her family teetering on the edge, rent overdue, her mother, Sarah's medication running low, and her brother Noah's school fees unpaid. Ethan's challenge was a lifeline. Compete against Claire Thompson, a 3 Michelin star chef, in a cooking showdown at the gala. Win, and she'd secure a cybersecurity job at SkyTech and enough money to change their lives. Lose, and the Hayes family's narrative would bury her for good. Emma peered into the main kitchen, where Claire Thompson commanded a team of sous chefs with military precision. Her platinum blonde hair was pinned in a flawless chignon, her white chef's coat pristine, Claire's reputation was legendary. Her restaurant, Lumiere, was a pilgrimage site for food critics, but her icy demeanor suggested she saw Emma as beneath her. Emma's team was a single assistant, Lucas Bennett, a lanky 19-year-old dishwasher with nervous eyes and a mop of curly hair. She'd chosen him on instinct, spotting him scrubbing pots in the corner, his quiet determination reminding her of Noah. "You sure about this, Emma?" Lucas whispered, clutching a peeling knife like it might bite him. "I've never cooked for anyone but my mom." "You'll do fine," Emma said, forcing confidence. "Just follow my lead." Her mind flashed to her father, James Carter, teaching her to chop vegetables in their tiny kitchen. "Cooking's about heart, not just skill," he'd said. She clung to that memory, her only armor against the eyes boring into her from the Gila crowd. Ethan Sy stood near the stage, his tailored tuxedo accentuating his sharp features. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on Emma. Beside him, Daniel Lynn, his trusted assistant, murmured, "The board's watching, sir. Robert Pierce is already whispering to investors about your reckless gamble on Miss Carter." "Let them whisper," Ethan replied, his voice low. "She's about to prove them wrong." But doubt flickered in his mind. He'd seen Emma's coding brilliance, but cooking? This was a risk, even for him. The gala's host, a silver-haired MC, named Victor Lang, took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's highlight, a culinary duel between Chef Claire Thompson of Lumiere and SkyTech's surprise contender, Emma Carter." The crowd applauded, but murmurs rippled through the room, laced with skepticism. Emma caught snippets, poisoner's kid, publicity stunt, and her stomach twisted. Claire strode to her station, her team rolling out gleaming equipment and premium ingredients. Emma's station, by contrast, was a disaster. A dented pan, a dull knife, and a stovetop that flickered unreliably. "They're setting you up to fail," Lucas muttered, eyeing the setup. "Then we'll win anyway," Emma said, her jaw set. She'd faced worse odds. The rules were simple. Each chef would prepare a main course in 60 minutes, judged blindly by the gala's elite guests. The winner, chosen by vote, would claim the prize and SkyTech's spotlight dot as the timer started. Claire's team moved like a well-oiled machine, searing Wagyu beef and emulsifying sauces with surgical precision. Emma took a deep breath, channeling her father's lessons. She'd planned a simple dish, a roasted vegetable medley with a herb-infused reduction, inspired by James's philosophy of letting flavors speak for themselves. But the ingredients provided were subpar: wilted herbs, tough root vegetables, and olive oil that smelled faintly rancid. First trap, she thought, her mind racing. "Lucas, grab the thyme and rosemary from that crate," she instructed, improvising. "We'll double the seasoning to mask the oil." Lucas nodded, scurrying to comply, his nerves easing under her calm direction. Emma worked quickly, her hand steady despite the crowd's scrutiny. She recalled James's words, "When the kitchen's against you, tell a story with what you've got." Her story was survival, hers, her mother's, Noah's, and every slice of her knife poured that into the dish. Halfway through, Margaret Hayes swept into the ballroom, her crimson gown drawing every eye. Her daughter, Chloe Hayes, trailed behind, smirking at Emma's station. Margaret approached the judge's table, her voice loud enough to carry. "I hope the food's safe tonight. Wouldn't want another silver fork incident." The crowd tittered, and Emma's cheeks burned. She gripped her spatula, counting to 3 in her head. "Don't listen to her," Lucas whispered, chopping carrots with newfound focus. "You've got this," Emma nodded, refocusing. But the stovetop flickered again, refusing to heat properly. "Second trap," she muttered, switching to the oven, which was marginally better. She adjusted her reduction, using a splash of cheap white wine to coax depth from the lackluster ingredients. Her movements grew fluid, almost meditative, as if James were guiding her hands. With 10 minutes left, disaster struck. As Emma checked the oven, a puff of smoke billowed out. The temperature had been cranked to maximum, charring her vegetables. Lucas gasped. Someone tampered with it. The crowd murmured, some laughing, as Claire's team exchanged smug glances. Emma's heart sank, but she remembered James's advice. A chef sees possibilities, not problems. She salvaged the least burnt pieces, blending them into a rustic puree to complement the remaining vegetables, finishing with a bite drizzle of her reduction. Time's up, Victor announced. The dishes were plated and sent to the judge's table, anonymous to ensure fairness. Claire's Wagyu, paired with a truffle foam, was a work of art. Emma's dish, simple but aromatic, looked humble by comparison. Ethan tasted both, his expression unreadable. He closed his eyes as Emma's puree hit his palate, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. "This feels like home," he murmured, too low for others to hear. The guests sampled the dishes, their whispers growing animated. Margaret Hayes, seated among the judges, tasted Emma's dish with a grimace, muttering, "Amateur." But others exchanged surprised glances, nodding in approval. Chloe, live tweeting from her phone, posted, "Poisoner's kid thinks she can cook?" #jailflop. Victor took the stage, holding a golden envelope. The votes are in, and the result is surprising. Emma braced herself, expecting defeat. By a margin of 3 votes, the winner is Emma Carter. The room erupted in gasps and scattered applause. Claire's jaw dropped, her team frozen in disbelief. Lucas hugged Emma, who stood blinking, unable to process the words. "Impossible." Margaret stood, her voice shrill. "There's been a mistake." "The votes were counted twice, Mrs. Hayes," Ethan said, stepping forward, his tone icy. "The decision is final." Camera flashes exploded as he guided Emma to the stage, handing her a check for $50,000. Her fingers trembled as she touched the paper. Visions of paid rent, Sarah's medicine, and Noah's school fees flooding her mind. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Ethan's smile was genuine, a rare crack in his stoic facade. "You earned it," but the victory was bittersweet. As Emma left the stage, Margaret cornered her near the kitchen. "Enjoy your little moment," she hissed. "But you'll never escape your father's shadow." Richard made sure of that. Emma's blood ran cold. Was Margaret admitting something about James's downfall? Back home, Emma sat on the couch, the check clutched in her hands. Sarah, awake for once, held it with trembling fingers. 50,000, sweetheart, she murmured, stunned. Noah bounced with excitement. "We're rich, Em. Can we get a new TV?" "It's not that much, kiddo," Emma said, exhausted but smiling. "But it'll help." Her phone buzzed a message from Ethan. "Office, 10 a.m. tomorrow. We need to talk." Before she could reply, the doorbell rang. A reporter from New Avalon Daily stood outside, microphone in hand. "Ms. Carter, any comment on rumors you use your father's poisoning tactics to win tonight?" Emma slammed the door, her heart pounding. Someone was trying to ruin her, just like they'd ruined James. She opened her father's old laptop, a relic she'd kept for sentiment. Tucked in the case was a worn notebook, his recipe journal. Flipping through it, she found a scrawled note. "Hayes wants the recipes. If I say no, they'll destroy me." Her breath caught. This was proof her father suspected Richard Hayes. Across town, Ethan watched gala footage in his office, pausing on Emma's determined face as she cooked. Daniel entered, holding a tablet. "Sir, we found something. The Silver Fork toxicology reports there's discrepancy. The poison didn't match the symptoms." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "And the detective, Michael Reed, vanished after the case. We're tracing him. Daniel hesitated. Sir, Robert Pierce met with Richard Hayes tonight. He's pushing the board to block your plans for Emma. Ethan's jaw tightened. Let's see how far they're willing to go. The studio lights of Star of Cuisine, New Avalon's most watched cooking show, burned like miniature suns, casting harsh glare on the sleek chrome workstations. The audience buzzed in the stands, their anticipation electric, fueled by weeks of controversy surrounding Emma Carter. Her victory at SkyTech's charity gala had made her a polarizing figure, a folk hero to some, a pariah to others. The hashtag #POISONER's daughter, spearheaded by Chloe Hayes, had morphed into a digital witch hunt, with trolls flooding Emma's social media with threats and insults. Yet here she was, standing backstage in a simple white apron, her hands trembling as she adjusted her knife roll. This was no ordinary competition. It was a trap, and Emma knew it. The $50,000 from the gala had bought her family breathing room, rent paid, Sarah's medication restocked, and Noah enrolled in a better school. But the cost was steep. Reporters hounded their East Side apartment, and anonymous messages, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like your father," kept Emma awake at night. The discovery of James Carter's recipe journal, with its cryptic warning about Richard Hayes, had ignited a fire in her. She was no longer just fighting for survival. She was fighting to clear her father's name. And Star of Cuisine, sponsored by Richard's Silver Fork empire, was her chance to prove the Carters were more than their tainted legacy. Ethan Sy had tried to talk her out of it. It's a setup, he'd warned over coffee at a quiet diner, his dark eyes shadowed with concern. Richard Hayes owns the show. He'll humiliate you on national TV. But Emma was resolute. If I don't go, they win, she'd said. I need to show the world who I am. Ethan's silence had spoken volumes, but he promised to have her back, whatever it took. Now, as a producer shouted, 5 minutes to air. Emma surveyed her competition. 5 seasoned chefs, each with their own restaurants or TV deals. Their stations stocked with gleaming tools and premium ingredients. Emma's setup, by contrast, was a patchwork of dull knives, scratched pans, and a stove that sputtered ominously. They're not even hiding it, muttered Lucas Bennett, her assistant from the gala, now her unofficial sous chef. His curly hair was tucked under a cap, his nerves barely masked by a determined grin. They can try, Emma said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. She clutched her father's recipe journal, tucked inside her apron, its worn pages a talisman. We've got this, Lucas. The studio darkened, and the theme music blared, a pulsing beat that matched Emma's racing heart. The host, Caesar Vega, glided onto the stage, his megawatt smile dazzling the cameras. Good evening, America. It boomed. Tonight, a special edition of Star of Cuisine, featuring the most controversial contestant in our history, Emma Carter. The crowd erupted, a mix of cheers and boos. Emma swallowed hard, stepping into the spotlight as cameras zoomed in. Banners in the audience read, "Poison Family Out," waved by plants she suspected were Chloe's doing. Caesar's grin widened, sensing ratings gold. Emma Carter, daughter of the infamous chef James Carter, who nearly killed 15 people at Silver Fork. How does it feel to be here? Emma's jaw tightened. I'm here to cook, not to talk about the past, she said, her voice clear but edged with defiance. Oh, but the past always catches up, doesn't it? Caesar quipped, winking at the cameras. He introduced the judges. Chef Philippe Moreau, critic Renata Alvarez, and, to Emma's horror, Richard Hayes himself, his silver hair and calculating smile unmistakable. The crowd murmured, sensing blood in the water. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a gauntlet. Today's challenge, Caesar announced, is to create a signature dish in 60 minutes. The winner earns immunity. The loser faces elimination. Let the flames begin. A digital timer ticked down, and the chef sprang into action. Emma had planned a wild mushroom risotto with a red wine reduction, a nod to James's favorite recipe. But when she opened her ingredient crate, her heart sank. The arborio rice was replaced with long grain, useless for risotto's creamy texture. "First trap," she muttered, her mind racing. Lucas hovered, anxious. "What do we do?" "Improvise," Emma said, grabbing the long grain rice. She'd pivot to a creamy rice pilaf, using extra butter and stock to mimic risotto's texture. Her hands moved with purpose, chopping mushrooms with a dull knife that threatened to slip. The cameras circled her like vultures, zooming in on every fumble, every bead of sweat. The audience whispered, their judgment palpable. The judges approached. Her station, their expressions skeptical. Felipe, a wiry Frenchman, peered at her rice. "An interesting technique," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Learn from your father, I presume?" "Yes," Emma replied, not looking up. "He was a great chef, no matter what you've heard." Richard leaned in, his voice smooth but venomous. "A great chef?" He couldn't tell saffron from strychnine. The crowd tittered, and Emma's face burned. She gripped her knife, counting to 3 in her head. James's old trick to keep her cool. Her food processor jammed, spitting sparks trap 2. She switched to hand chopping, her fingers aching. Then the stove faltered, barely simmering her stock trap 3. Lucas cursed under his breath, but Emma adjusted, moving her pan to the oven for heat. "We're telling a story," she murmured, echoing James. "This is ours." With 15 minutes left, a producer slipped beside her, whispering, "Hayes added a twist. Judges will ask about molecular gastronomy techniques." Emma's stomach dropped. Molecular gastronomy phones. Spherification wasn't in the rules, and her station lacked the tools for it. Richard's smirk from the judges' table confirmed it. He wanted her to crash and burn, but Emma had studied James's journal, where he'd scribbled notes on avant-garde techniques, fascinated by their precision. She pivoted again, using a simple emulsification to create a mushroom foam with her limited ingredients. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. As the timer hit 0, she plated her dish, a creamy rice pilaf crowned with mushrooms and a delicate foam. Its aroma rich and earthy. The judges tasted the other chef's dishes first, praising their technical prowess. When Emma's turn came, the studio fell silent. Richard sampled her pilaf, his face a mask of disdain. "Edible," he said coldly, "but unfit for this stage." Felipe agreed, calling it basic, no innovation. Renata, however, lingered over her bite, her eyes narrowing. "There's familiarity here," she said softly. "It reminds me of James Carter's style." Richard interrupted, his voice sharp. "Like father, like daughter destined to fail." The crowd reacted, some jeering. Caesar grinned, ratings soaring. Emma stood rigid, her hands clenched, when the studio doors burst open. Ethan Sy strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers, his tuxedo impeccable despite the late hour. The cameras swiveled, catching the shock on Caesar's face. "Mr. Sy, what a surprise." The host stammered, "Here to watch?" "To clarify something," Ethan said, his voice calm but commanding. He faced the judges. "If Emma Carter loses due to bias, SkyTech will pull its $50 million sponsorship from this show." The studio fell silent, the threat hanging like a guillotine. "This is blackmail." Richard sputtered, rising. "It's business, Ethan." Corrected, his eyes locked on Richard. "Taste her dish again." Fairly. Renata, unfazed, took another bite. "This foam," she murmured, closing her eyes. "It's James Carter's signature, reimagined. There's balance, depth." Felipe, reluctantly, nodded. "The simplicity hides complexity." Richard refused to retry, but he was outvoted. The final tally. Emma won. 2-1. The audience clapped hesitantly, confused. Emma, tears pricking her eyes, could barely process it. As she left the stage, Ethan waited backstage. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice shaky. "I did," he replied. "That was a disgrace. You won because you're exceptional, not because of my threat." A tear escaped, and Emma wiped it away. "Would my dad be proud?" Ethan's smile was soft, unguarded. "He already is." Back at SkyTech, Ethan met with Daniel Lin in his office, the city's skyline a dark canvas beyond the glass. "What did you find?" Ethan asked, his voice tight. Daniel swiped his tablet. The Silver Fork toxicology reports were tampered with. The poison cyanide couldn't have caused the reported symptoms. And Michael Reed, the lead detective, requested a transfer a week after James Carter's death. He's living in London under a new name, with a bank account that doesn't match his salary. Ethan's fist clenched. Bribery. And Richard Hayes? His company funded the lab that produced the reports. "And sir," Daniel hesitated, "Robert Pierce was seen leaving Hayes' office yesterday. He's pushing the board to suspend you." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Get me on a flight to London. I need Reed's confession." Across town, Emma sat in her apartment, the recipe journal open on her lap. Noah slept on the couch, Sarah's wheelchair empty as she rested. A new message flashed on Emma's phone, anonymous. "You're digging a grave, Carter. Back off, or it's not just you." Her hand shook, but she opened James's laptop, searching for more clues. A hidden file caught her eye, a draft email. From James to a lawyer, never sent. "Hayes threatened me. If anything happens, check the lab." Emma's resolve hardened. The truth was close, but so was danger. The London sky was a bruised gray, heavy with the threat of rain, as Ethan Sy stepped off his private jet at a secluded airstrip. His tailored coat did little to shield him from the biting wind, but his focus was razor-sharp. For 3 days, he'd been tracking Michael Reed, the detective who'd vanished after James Carter's arrest. Daniel Lin's investigation had uncovered damning leads. Reed's sudden wealth, a London alias, and ties to Richard Hayes' Silver Fork empire. Ethan clutched a burner phone, its single contact a hacker who'd pinpointed Reed's location, a nondescript pub in East London. If Reed confessed to framing James, it could unravel Hayes' conspiracy and clear Emma Carter's family name. But the cost of truth was steep, and Ethan felt the weight of it with every step. Back in New Avalon, Emma paced the safe house. Ethan had arranged a sleek downtown condo with bulletproof windows and 24/7 security. The move was necessary after her star of cuisine victory, which had ignited a firestorm. Her public win, bolstered by Ethan's threat to pull SkyTech sponsorship, had made #justice for James trend, alongside #POISONERS daughter, splitting public opinion. Supporters hailed her as a working-class hero, but Hayes' all eyes led by Chloe Hayes flooded social media with vitriol, accusing her of manipulating the show. Anonymous threats escalated, the latest a chilling text, "You're next, Carter." Like father, like daughter. Emma's mother, Sarah, and brother, Noah, were safe in the condo. But Emma felt caged, her father's recipe journal her only solace. Its cryptic note, "Hayes threatened me. Check the lab," haunted her, a puzzle she was desperate to solve. Ethan's last message, sent 12 hours ago, was brief. "Found Reed. Stay safe. I'll be back soon." But the silence since then gnawed at Emma. She trusted Ethan, his quiet strength a lifeline through the chaos. But their last meeting, a stolen moment. In the diner, his hand brushing hers, had stirred something deeper. Was it gratitude or something more? She pushed the thought aside, opening James's old laptop. The draft email to a lawyer never sent hinted at a lab cover-up. If she could find that lab's records, It might corroborate Ethan's findings. At the London pub, Ethan slid into a corner booth, his face shadowed by a cap. Reed, now graying and paunchy, sat across from him, nursing a pint. His eyes darted nervously, betraying the man who'd once wielded authority. "You've got 5 minutes, Si," Reed muttered. "I don't know what you think I've got to say." "I know you framed James Carter," Ethan said, his voice low and unyielding. He slid a folder across the table, bank records showing a $2 million transfer to Reed's account days after James's death. "Hayes paid you to plant the cyanide, didn't he? To falsify the toxicology reports." Reed's hand shook, spilling beer. "You don't get it. Hayes owns people, cops, judges, labs. If I talk, I'm dead." "You're already a ghost," Ethan countered, activating a hidden recorder in his coat. "Talk, and I'll protect you. Stay silent, and I'll make sure Hayes knows you're a loose end." It was a bluff, but Reed's resolve crumbled. "Fine," he whispered, glancing at the door. Hayes wanted Carter out. James was planning his own restaurant, a threat to Silver Fork's monopoly. "I planted the cyanide in the dessert samples, fudged the lab reports." The judge, Hayes' cousin, made sure the trial was a sham. Ethan's pulse quickened as Reed detailed the conspiracy, every word captured. But as Reed finished, two men in dark jackets entered the pub, their eyes locking onto the booth. "Time's up," Ethan said, slipping the recorder into his pocket. He stood, but the men moved fast, one drawing a knife. Ethan dodged, shoving Reed behind him, and sprinted for the exit. The chase spilled into an alley, rain now falling in sheets. Ethan's burner phone buzzed a call to Daniel, but a blow to his ribs sent him crashing against a dumpster. Pain seared through him as the second man raised a blade. "Hey, says hello," he snarled. Ethan fought back, landing a punch, but the first man tackled him, the knife grazing his arm. Blood soaked his sleeve, and his vision blurred. As the men closed in, a car screeched to a halt, its headlights blinding. Daniel Lynn leapt out, flanked by two security guards, their shouts scattering the attackers. Ethan collapsed, clutching the recorder, his last thought of Emma Dott in New Avalon. Emma's phone rang at 2 a.m., shattering the condo's silence. Daniel's voice was grim. "Ethan's been attacked in London. He's stable, but it's bad broken ribs, concussion, deep cut. He got Reed's confession, though. I'm sending it to you now." Emma's heart plummeted, her hands shaking as she opened the encrypted file. Reed's voice, tinny but clear, laid out the conspiracy. Hayes' orders, the faked evidence, the judge's complicity. Tears streamed down her face. This was the truth her father died for, but danger was closer than she knew. As dawn broke, Emma left a safe house to buy groceries, needing a moment of normalcy. On a quiet street, a black van pulled up, blocking her path. Two men jumped out, one snarling, "Poisoner's daughter. Hayes sends his regards." Emma's instincts kicked in. She bolted, weaving through an alley, but the second man grabbed her arm, pinning her against a wall. "Help!" she screamed, thrashing. Her elbow caught his stomach, loosening his grip, and she ran, her breath ragged. A SkyTech security SUV screeched around the corner, Daniel at the wheel. "Get in," he shouted, firing a warning shot that sent the men fleeing. Emma dove into the vehicle, trembling as they sped away. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked, his eyes scanning her. "Just scared," Emma gasped, clutching her father's journal, which she'd grabbed instinctively. "How's Ethan?" "Alive, but critical," Daniel said. "He left instructions. If anything happened, you get this." He handed her a USB drive and a folder. Inside was Reed's signed confession, detailing Hayes' $2 million bribe, and digital records of tampered lab reports. Ethan knew the risks, Daniel added. He built a safety net. Emma's resolve hardened. "We need to go public. Now." Back at the safe house, She uploaded the confession to Twitter, tagging major news outlets with hashtag Justice for James. The post went viral within minutes, retweeted by supporters and amplified by a hacker group calling themselves truth seekers. Headlines erupted. Silver Fork scandal. Was James Carter framed? Noah burst into the room, waving his tablet.
You did it. The whole world's talking about Dad.
Sarah, awake and frail, clutched Emma's hand. Your father would be so proud. But Emma's joy was tempered by fear for Ethan, still fighting for his life. At Silver Fork's headquarters, Richard Hayes watched the news with a clenched jaw. His office, once a symbol of untouchable power, felt like a cage. Margaret Hayes stormed in, her face pale. This is your fault, Richard. You said Carter's daughter was nothing. She is nothing, Richard snapped, slamming his fist on the desk. But Cy's a problem. Call our lawyers. Sue SkyTech for defamation. And get Chloe to push harder online. Margaret hesitated. The board's pulling back. Investors are spooked. If this confession holds, it won't, Richard growled. I'll bury them both. At SkyTech, Daniel fielded frantic calls from the board, led by Robert Pierce, who demanded Ethan's suspension. Cy's obsession with this girl has cost us 3 contracts. Pierce roared in a conference call. Our stock's down 10%. Daniel kept his cool, relaying Ethan's orders. Send copies of Reed's confession to the FBI and major media. The truth was out, and Hayes' empire was crumbling. Emma, holed up in the safe house, scrolled through the flood of notifications. Supporters posted, "We believe you, Emma." But Chloe's hashtag POISON campaign persisted, accusing her of forging the evidence. A news alert flashed. Richard Hayes sues SkyTech for defamation, claims Carter conspiracy. Emma's phone buzzed an unknown number. She answered, her voice wary. Hello? Emma. Ethan's voice, weak and laced with static, came through. Don't talk, just listen. I'm okay. Reed's confession. It's real. I'm coming back today, but Hayes knows. Be careful. The call cut off, leaving Emma frozen. His voice had carried fear, a tone she'd never heard from him. That night, she couldn't sleep, checking her phone obsessively. At 4:37 a.m., a notification popped up. Ethan-sized jet lands in New Avalon. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. Hours later, Noah's frantic cries woke her. The TV. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, hands over her mouth, as CNN showed live footage of an ambulance outside SkyTech's headquarters. The headline seared into Emma's vision. SkyTech CEO attacked in office. The reporter's voice was grave. Ethan. Cy was found unconscious this morning, bleeding from a violent assault. Police suspect a connection to the Silver Fork scandal. He's in serious but stable condition. Emma grabbed her coat, ignoring Sarah's pleas. I have to see him, Daniel called as she reached the elevator. Don't go to the hospital. Reporters are swarming, and it's not safe. Ethan left something for you. Meet me at the SkyTech warehouse in 30 minutes. Emma bit her lip, torn, but nodded. The truth was her weapon now, and she wouldn't let Ethan's sacrifice be in vain. At the warehouse, a gray slab in New Avalon's industrial district, Daniel led her to a dusty office. On a table lay the folder and USB, duplicates of Reed's confession. Ethan planned for this, Daniel said, his voice heavy. He knew Hayes would come for him. Emma opened the folder, tears falling as she read Reed's words. Richard. Hayes paid me to frame James Carter. The poison was planted. The trial was rigged. We sent copies to the FBI, Daniel said. The press is running with it. Hayes is finished. Emma nodded, clutching the folder. The truth had cost her father his life, and nearly Ethan's, but it wasn't over. One final battle awaited, and she'd face it for James, for Ethan, for herself. The new Avalon Convention Center pulsed with energy, its vast arena transformed into a culinary coliseum for the National Culinary Championship, the most prestigious cooking competition in America. 8 finalists, each a titan of the culinary world, stood ready at their stations, but all eyes were on Emma Carter. The daughter of the disgraced chef James Carter, now vindicated by a viral confession exposing Richard Hayes' conspiracy, Emma was no longer just a delivery girl. She was a symbol of resilience, her story dominating headlines. Innocent chef framed, Carter's daughter fights for legacy. Yet the battle wasn't over. Richard Hayes, the silver fork magnate, sat in the VIP mezzanine, his silver hair gleaming under the lights, his smile a mask of defiance. As the competition's main sponsor, he wielded power to make Emma's final stand a living hell. Emma adjusted her apron, her father's recipe journal tucked inside, its worn pages a lifeline. The USB drive containing Michael Reed's confession, now in the FBI's hands, had sparked a firestorm. Richard was indicted for bribery, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder, but released on bail, his influence still casting a long shadow. Margaret Hayes had fled to Europe, and Chloe's #POISONERS daughter campaign had fizzled as #Justice for James took over. Emma's safe house, where Sarah and Noah now lived under SkyTech's protection, was a fortress against the threats that followed her star of cuisine win. But tonight, she'd face Richard on her terms, in the kitchen her father loved. Ethan Sy, still recovering from the London attack, leaned on a cane as he entered the arena, his gray suit sharp despite the bruises. Beneath, doctors had ordered rest, but he wouldn't miss Emma's moment. "You're supposed to be in bed," Emma said, her voice soft with concern as she spotted him near her station. "I miss you make history?" Ethan replied, his smile warm. Their eyes met, a silent promise of the future they'd fought for. Lucas Bennett, her loyal sous chef, grinned beside her, organizing their knives. "We've got this, Em," he said, his nerves replaced by confidence honed through their trials. The host, Patricia Nealon, a renowned chef who'd praised Emma on Star of Cuisine, took the stage. "Welcome to the National Culinary Championship," she announced, the crowd roaring. "Tonight's theme, reinvention. Create a classic dish with your personal touch. Contestants, you have 3 hours. Let the best chef win." Cameras swept the arena, broadcasting live to millions. Richard sipped champagne above, his gaze cold, plotting one last trap. Emma chose to reinvent James's signature dish, Sea and Earth, a harmonious blend of seared scallops, a red wine reduction with secret spices and earthy root vegetables. It was her father's masterpiece, and she'd add her own flair, a citrus-infused foam to brighten the flavors, a nod to her journey from darkness to light. As the timer started, she worked with precision, Lucas following her lead. The judges, including Patricia, roamed the stations, their questions probing. "You're recreating your father's dish," Patricia noted at Emma's station. "A bold choice. Are you honoring his legacy?" "I'm building on it," Emma replied, searing scallops. "He taught me to respect tradition but find my own voice." Patricia nodded, impressed, while Richard's scowl deepened from the mezzanine. Halfway through, a production assistant whispered to Emma, "Hayes changed the rules. Judges will quiz you on molecular gastronomy." The crowd murmured, sensing foul play. Molecular gastronomy gels, spherification, wasn't part of the original brief, and Emma's station lacked the equipment. Lucas paled, but Emma steadied him. "Dad dabbled in this stuff," she said, recalling his journal's notes. She improvised, using her reduction to create a minimalist gel, her hands steady despite the sabotage. Richard, enraged by her adaptability, signaled an organizer who accidentally knocked over Emma's spice tray, scattering her secret blend. The crowd gasped, But Emma salvaged what she could, her focus unshakable. Sarah and Noah watched from the front row, Noah clutching Ethan's arm. "She's gonna win, right?" he asked, his voice trembling. "She will," Ethan said, his eyes never leaving Emma. "She's the strongest person I know." As the final minutes ticked down, Emma plated her dish. Golden scallops, vibrant vegetables, and a delicate gel. Its aroma a love letter to James. The judges tasted each entry, their notes hushed. Richard's confidence wavered as Patricia lingered over Emma's plate, closing her eyes. "This is extraordinary," she whispered. The other chef's dishes, molecular marvels and technical feats, were impressive. But Emma's carried heart. Patricia took the stage, holding a golden envelope. Before the winner, a special announcement, she said. "The National Culinary Council has restored honors to James Carter, recognizing the injustice done to this great chef." Sarah sobbed, Noah cheering as the crowd applauded. Emma's legs wobbled, tears brimming. Patricia continued, "And the winner of this year's championship is Emma Carter, with her reinvention of sea and earth." The arena exploded in cheers. Lucas hugged Emma, who stood frozen, the weight of her father's vindication washing over her. Ethan's eyes glistened with pride as he limped to the stage, embracing her. "We did it, Dad," Emma whispered, clutching the golden trophy. Richard stormed out, shoving past security, his champagne glass shattering on the floor. Hours later, police arrested Richard outside his mansion, cameras capturing his fall. The FBI's case, bolstered by Reed's confession and lab records, was airtight. Silver Fork's stock plummeted, and Margaret's absence sealed the family's collapse. Ethan, cleared by SkyTech's board, resumed his CEO role, his gamble on Emma vindicated. 6 months later, a seaside colonial mansion bloomed with white and gold petals for Emma and Ethan's wedding. Emma, radiant in an ivory gown with lace sleeves, spun nervously before a mirror. Sarah, walking with a cane thanks to Ethan's funded treatment, adjusted her veil. "Your father dropped our bouquet twice," Sarah teased, her eyes misty. Noah burst in, sharp, in a pageboy suit. There's a surprise." Antonio Souza, James's former sous chef, stood at the door, flown in from Portugal. "Your dad asked me to be here if anything happened," he said, voice thick. Emma, tears falling, let him walk her down the aisle. 300 guests, chefs, journalists. Even Patricia watched as Emma glowed beside Ethan, their vows moving the crowd to tears. "You show me true wealth is in moments money can't buy," Ethan said. Emma promised, "I'll be your safe harbor, always." The reception, a 7-course feast by Emma, told their story, from humble soups to James's reimagined soufflé. Margaret Hayes, returned from Europe, approached quietly, seeking forgiveness. Emma embraced her, whispering, "Today's for new beginnings." Their first dance, a waltz under twinkling lights, sealed their bond. Noah grabbed the mic, announcing their new restaurant 1 second, named for Emma's SkyTech moment. Laughter filled the air. Under a starlit sky, Ethan held Emma by the ocean. "Happy?" he asked, kissing her neck. "More than I thought possible," she replied, placing his hand on her belly. "A baby's coming." Ethan's eyes widened, joy overtaking him. They kissed, a star glowing brighter above. "Dad's watching," Emma whispered. "Love's here to stay." Emma and Ethan's story is a testament to resilience, justice, and the transformative power of love. Emma's journey from a marginalized delivery girl to a celebrated chef shows that courage can overcome prejudice, and truth can heal even the deepest wounds. Ethan's evolution from a cold CEO to a devoted partner underscores the value of empathy and sacrifice. Their love, forged in adversity, reminds us that human connection is life's greatest treasure. The story teaches us to stand for what's right, honor our roots, and believe in second chances, proving that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when driven by heart. What did you think of Emma and Ethan's journey? Rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments and share your favorite moment. Don't miss more inspiring tales. Subscribe to Legacy Stories and hit the notification bell to join our community of dreamers and truth seekers. Check out other touching stories by clicking the link below. Let's keep the legacy alive.